My name is Sherry Pitchford. I live in Morenci, Michigan. I was 37 years old. I was raising 3 daughters on my own, just been divorced 4 or 5 years before. The reason why I started taking martial arts, especially before I started having kids, was because when I was 13, I was actually attacked. I was raped. At that point, once I turned 18, I swore that I would never let another person do that to me again. I was 13. It was like a date rape kind of thing. And it was back when, if you say anything, you better have some physical proof. I was just kind of like, I don't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to say anything to anybody. I just kept it under wraps. In order for me to fulfill that promise to myself that I would never let another human being hurt me physically and emotionally like that again, I had decided when I was 18 that I was going to start taking martial arts lessons. I was going to learn how to protect myself. And once I got into it, it was like, there's a whole nother world here that I never even thought of. And here I am. I've grown this love and knowledge of martial arts to the point where I felt I was convinced that I could actually protect myself if I needed to, but I also prayed that I'd never have to. I had never in a million years would have thought that I would have had to use it. I was glad that I had the information, I had the abilities to do so. But again, you don't walk out in the morning thinking, oh, I'm going to have to defend myself today. Well, what had happened that day is the plan was I was supposed to go, and I did go to Cleveland for my second degree black belt testing. And that is usually like an 8-hour process. It's not just a go in for a couple hours. Back then, if you go in, no thing that you've ever learned, because at second degree black belt, you're expected to actually start teaching a majority of what you've already learned to other students. Typically, after that, we go out to have dinner with the Grand Master. I had myself, my 3 daughters with me. Nonetheless, I followed through, but I told him, I said, look, can you take my daughters with you? Go ahead and get us a table. I have to go find an ATM. I finally did find an ATM. Didn't see anybody right away. So I walked up, got my money. All of a sudden, I get those hairs on the back of my neck. And I'm looking, and here come one guy this way, one guy this way, both of which are carrying weapons. One's carrying a baseball bat. The other one coming this way was carrying a knife. And I'm thinking, oh, dear God, please no, this can't be happening. At that point, I don't know which one to confront first because they were both getting pretty close in proximity. But I thought, okay, if he's going to knock me out with the bat, God, I don't want to see it coming. I'm looking at the guy with the knife. So I'm thinking, if he's going to stab me, at least I can defend the knife. As I turned to do that, to defend against the knife, my hands are up, and all of a sudden, I get this flash of a baseball bat coming over top of me and pinning my hands like this. So the baseball bat is against my chest with my hands like this. I've got a hold of the bat, but he's got a hold of the bat and pulling me into him. I'm thinking, dear God, he has got to be either A, the dumbest person in the world, or B, I've really got a heck of a grip on this thing and somebody's going flying. All of a sudden, the guy behind me says, give us your money, give us your ATM card, and we'll let you go. I told him, I said, you don't want any of this. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. The other guy with the knife tells me a few expletives, F you, give me your money or I'll slice you up. I kept pleading and say, hey, I've got kids. You can't do this. This isn't right. Next thing I know, I've got my left foot planted between the guy's legs, the guy that's got me with the baseball bat. I've got my left foot planted between his legs, and I have just enough leverage. I could actually, if I'm pushing enough, I can get him up off the ground. He's quite a bit taller than me and quite a bit more muscular than me, but I thought, okay, I'm pretty sure I can do this. My martial arts has taught me how to think outside the box. I got to think outside the box because I've never been trained how to get out of a baseball bat hold. So as I'm like this, I step back. I said, okay, you asked for it. It's not like you weren't warned. I step back. I flipped the guy that was on my back over onto the guy that had the knife. The knife goes flying in another direction. I have no idea where. And at that point, I didn't care. And I have the baseball bat. So now the guy that I flipped over stands up and goes, "You FFFFFB, I'm going to kill you." Really? I got the baseball bat. So for all I was worth, I thought, if nothing else, may God give me enough power to knock this guy out. Maybe the other one will run. So as hard as I could, I made a heartfelt swing straight for his jawline. I hit him so hard, his jaw busted, and you could just see his jaw hanging. It looked like a bad action theater movie. His jaw was just hanging. And I thought, I hope to God I didn't kill him, but at least he's not on me. The other guy gets up, and of course, he's yelling FFFB. Now he's squared up, he's going to fight me. I said, really? You didn't learn from him? He goes to take a swing, what we call a haymaker swing, when they swing around at your temple. He does that. I duck out of the way, and I grab for his groin. And with everything I had, I ripped. I grabbed a hold of it, twisted, and ripped. The guy was only wearing sweatpants. What I had left was a handful of no-no square. Of course, dropped, screaming like a banshee, and finally passed out. But in the meantime, police must have been notified, or somebody must have seen what was going on and called, because the police showed up probably not even 2-3 minutes after this had happened. Of course, to me, it felt like it had been an eternity, but it was only in reality a couple of minutes. And the officers come running, guns a-blazing, all that, asked me, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I reached out with what was in my hand and said, "You may want to give this to him when he wakes up," and plopped in the hands of the police officer. And they said, "What?" And of course, I explained what was going on, and they eventually got my statement and everything else after I calmed down. And by that time, I started bawling. I finally realized what I had done, that I'd hurt another human being, but then I realized it was either them or me, and it wasn't going to be me. I had 3 daughters to take care of. I had a family that loved me dearly. I wasn't going to leave them without a mother, and I wasn't going to leave them knowing that I couldn't go down swinging. I did what I had to do. The police told me, "Thank God you're okay, because we've been looking for these two for at least the last 2 weeks, because they had tried this with an 80-year-old man, and he's in the hospital fighting for his life because of them." So now they went off to jail. They got sentenced, everything else. Of course, I went home that night covered in and everything else. I got cleaned up at the restaurant, told my grandmaster what had happened, and he says, "Well, for that, you probably ought to have your 3rd-degree black belt." I told him, I said, "I just want to get the kids something to eat and go home." And he says, "I understand. If you want to ride home, I can give you a ride home." But anyways, I went home, and it took me months to get over that whole scenario in my head, that whole thing. Now I teach martial arts, and when I teach self-defense, I teach to think outside the box, because not everything you're taught in martial arts is going to work, but thinking outside the box sometimes does. At the time of the incident, I was thinking, God, I got to get out of this. What if I don't? I can't leave my children behind. I have to get out of this, or at least get out of this so I'm not deathly injured or gravely injured. Because in martial arts, they teach you sometimes you're going to get out of it without a scratch. Other times you might get a few scratches, a few cuts, but at least you're still alive. In my case, I was really praying. I'm not a big church person, but at that point I was, "Please God, this has got to be, you've got to get me out of it. One way or another, I've got to figure this out." So that's when I was, okay, one heartfelt swoop, this has got to go now. So at that point, my thoughts were, I've got to get out. I've got to do what I have to escape. Afterwards, my God, what if I hadn't done that? What if the guy didn't even give me a chance to do anything and would have hit me in the back of the head? But if I live with what ifs, I wouldn't be able to survive. I wouldn't be able to do what I needed to do to move on. So as much as I like to think, we as nature, as human beings, we want to think, what if we didn't do this, or what if this had happened instead? I myself, I've never really done that. I did it maybe for a couple minutes, and what ifs and buts, they're words, but I can't sit there and mentally put it together. To me, it's you live for the moment and you move on, or you live in the moment and move on. Well, until your adrenaline kicks up, you don't know what you're capable of doing. And yes, looking back retrospective afterwards, yeah, I could have died. I could have real easy been killed. Utilizing what I knew and what I know, I prevented that with the grace of whatever powers that be. If I hadn't, chances are I probably would have been dead, or I would have been in a hospital room next to the 80-year-old man from 2 weeks before, and my kids would have been on their own. I believe that there are angels that look over us, or beings that look over us. So that day, I really do believe that there was somebody looking over me, looking over the situation and going, hey, probably ought to send the kids with Grandmaster. Or, thank God he stepped up and said, hey, I'll take the kids. You go do what you got to do. Take a breather. Come and join us at the restaurant when you're ready. At that point, yes. I'm looking back and going, yeah, someone, somehow stepped in, basically protected the girls from having to see any of that. The therapy for me was bad enough. I can't imagine the therapy for the kids, because then they'd have to live with it a heck of a lot longer than me. Since the day of the attack, I've had some anxiety. I deal with anxiety and depression and all of that anyways, but that really highlighted the anxiety for me. So my husband had to learn not to squeeze me from behind or come in and grab me from behind. He's my second husband, and he's been wonderful about the whole situation, even though he wasn't around at the time. He knows that, most people who know me, know that you don't come up behind me and grab me, because chances are you're going to go airborne. Anxiety-wise, yes, I've had anxiety. I had to go through therapy for months afterwards. The whole situation has made me stronger, made me know that if I can do that, I should be able to do just about anything I want. My kids tell me all the time, Mom, you are the strongest woman I know. Mentally, physically, emotionally. And I tell them, if you only knew the half of it. But, all joking aside, I can see why they say I am strong, because in my heart, I had to be strong, not only before the incident, but since the incident. I thank God that I got out of the situation alive and unscathed. I'm human. I still have nightmares, but I get through it. I'm always way more aware of my surroundings. Before the incident, yeah, okay, that person's walking down the street. That one's, that one looks like that. That one looks like that. That one's carrying a briefcase. That one's carrying an umbrella. But now it's which one could or has the potential to harm me or whoever I'm with. I don't like thinking derogatory about people, but I look for the good, but I expect the worst. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I do. And because of that situation, that's what it's become ingrained in me. About 10 years ago, I started working for Walmart. I don't know if I was supposed to tell them that, but I had worked for Walmart at the time, and I was hired because they heard about my skill set, but then they told me I couldn't use my skill set. They hired me for asset protection, but I wasn't allowed to beat people up. And I've had times when I worked for them that I've had people try to take swings at me. I've had people, throw things at me and everything else. And I'm like, really? I'm not having it today. Don't cross my line. I'm up to here and you're sinking fast. In my mind at the time, these two guys are attacking me, and the only thing I can think of is, oh my God, I'm leaving 3 kids behind. if they kill me, I have no children. My children have no mother. I can't do that. I've got to get out of this. I think part of it was I was still kind of in that black belt testing mind, because you have to show so many different attack modes and all this other self-defense stuff as part of your testing. In my mind, I was still thinking, oh my God, I can't use this tactic. I can't use that tactic. What am I going to do? I can't leave my daughters behind. It just, at that point, instinctively, I kicked in. I got to think outside the box. I got to get these guys off of me. And there we went. Went right down the rabbit hole and watched them fall. I tried to be more of the gentle mom, but, sometimes it's a matter of who's got the bigger ones, who's got the bigger cojones. Looking back, I never thought in a million years I'd be able to hurt somebody or whatever. But in this case, I'm really thinking it's either them or me. Which one of us is going to live? I've never been raised to kill. I've never been trained to kill. What I have been trained to is to protect. My own parents as a child taught me family is everything. Protect the family, protect yourself. As a whole, be one. In this scenario, I'm thinking words from my grandmaster, words from my dad, from my parents, and I'm in conflict. Do I kill them or not kill them? So, in retrospect, yes, I could have killed them. And quite honestly, I was hoping to God at least I'd knocked one of them out and the other one would have ran away. But I guess when you're hyped up on whatever, you're going to do whatever you want and try to get whatever you want. And in my case, my hyped up was I was up on adrenaline, and I wasn't going to go down dying. If I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down swinging, and somebody else is going to go to the hospital. I didn't want it to be me. The attack actually changed me, I feel, for the positive. Even though I'm leery of large amounts of people and my anxiety tends to build, the more people I'm with, the higher my anxiety gets. Or people grabbing me from behind, that sets me off. But in whole, it's actually made me stronger. I think physically, mentally, sometimes not always emotionally. But my kids have also said, Mom, you're the strongest woman we know. We love you for who you are. You teach. I've been known to teach 3-year-olds how to get out of a wrist grab. I had 80-year-old, 75 to 80-year-old students that have come to me and said, thank you for teaching us how to think outside the box. We don't always think, is this going to protect somebody? I always hope that my story, my teachings of self-defense and so on will keep somebody from getting hurt. Well, I know for a fact my grandmaster has told me he knows that I am a great teacher, that he enjoys watching me teach. And there's a lot of things that I've learned from him, but a lot of things he claims that he's learned from me. And one of them is to be strong, try to think positive all the time, and keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop. Just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean you quit. You keep trying. And that to me is, I think, what's made me stronger. The whole incident, the whole attack, yeah, I spent some time in therapy for it, but that was more for the emotional side, I think, than it was anything else.